Japan refers to the 1990s as the lost decade. This was due to the pop of their economic bubble leading into 1992. This led to an increase in gas prices, a much larger cost of living, and the shift of white-collar workers into other fields. With a rapidly increasing cost of living on their own and a collapsing job market, many young adults were forced to either move back in with their parents or never move out at all. However, a silver lining was the advancements in technology and entertainment. The influx of young people staying inside led to a boom of interest in things like manga and video games. During the peak of this interest was the February 1996 release of Pokémon Red and Pokémon Blue for the Nintendo Game Boy. We know today what this led to, but things were much more uncertain at the time. You can probably guess that the sheer release of Pokémon is what brought joy back to Japan, but this isn't actually the case. This isn't to say that things didn't get better, obviously they did. It's actually to say that at this point the joy had never left. In spite of this economic collapse, the indomitable human spirit prevailed. Throughout the lost decade, there was an increase in the social and emotional well-being of the Japanese people. In the face of these hardships, people spent time with family, or enjoyed what has since become some of the most revered media of our time. Especially in the case of children, watching Dragon Ball or Sailor Moon on television was enough to make the economic hardships fall on deaf ears. Unfortunately, for this video to go on, we have to set aside this sweet nostalgia and move forward to 2011. In the Tohoku region of Japan, shortly before 3 p.m. on March 11th, an earthquake began. With an epicenter only 45 miles into the Pacific Ocean and a terrifying 6-minute duration, the magnitude 9 earthquake was strong enough to send a tsunami towards the shore. During the demolition of infrastructure, there was an estimated 20,000 deaths, 6,000 injuries, and 2,500 unaccounted for individuals. Just like was seen in the face of the 9/11 tragedy, a sense of unity followed the destruction. Volunteers from across the country and even other countries brought resources such as food, water, and shelter to those affected. Among these were a group of volunteers from the Pokémon Company, who brought a particularly different resource with them. Pokémon Company CEO Suzukazu Ishihara, and soon-to-be president of the Pokémon Center subsidiary Yoriyama Uega, believed that there was something missing from the relief: fun. The earthquake took a lot from Japan's children, and in turn it left them with a great deal of stress. Though they had people on the scene since the incident, the Pokémon Company began their new initiative as early as April of 2011, having volunteers visit nursery schools, elementary schools, and temporary housing centers to distribute things like DSs, Pokémon cards, coloring books, and crafts. They also maintained general financial support for these areas by creating special items for the Pokémon Center stores and creating the Pokémon With You Fund to help fund the building of playgrounds and educational facilities for affected children. This fund is still alive and well today, but to talk about that would be getting ahead of myself. Creating merchandise to be sold at existing Pokémon Center stores was one thing, but Uego, now president of the Pokémon Center Company, wanted to take things even further. By December, Pokémon With You was able to build and open an entire Pokémon Center location in the Tohoku region. The grand opening of the store was commemorated by many pieces of artwork done by the prolific artist Koki Saito, who has done the illustrations for countless Pokémon cards and promotional pieces for the company. I reached out to him, and though he can't share too much about his official Pokémon projects, he shared with me his fondness felt towards these pieces, which was no surprise considering their importance. Any new Pokémon Center is a beautiful thing, as with it comes new products, new artwork, and even new jobs. But it's easy to forget the significance of this Pokémon Center in particular. It brought tourism to an area many people didn't wish to visit otherwise, and most importantly, it gave the affected children hope. I find no piece of media I've seen in my research as impactful as this image of a group of children at the grand opening. According to the person who shared this image, the children were orphaned as a result of the natural disaster. That would make sense, as when viewing the image you can see a plethora of mixed reactions. This is the perfect reminder of how bittersweet this situation was. No matter how nice the Pokémon Company was being, everybody would have preferred they didn't have such a call to action. Pokémon With You kept its momentum in January of 2012, when it started the Pokémon With You wagon. This was a van that would travel around and provide fun activities, books, and even a meet and greet for the children of Japan. Yoriyama Uega would say that the moment Pikachu comes out is probably the most exciting one for kids. I cannot find stats for how many different locations the wagon visited in its entire lifespan, but I can tell you between its start in January of 2012 and the 2-year anniversary of the earthquake in March 2013, it visited around 100 locations. Among these locations, primarily temporary housing and children's centers, they touched the lives of over 10,000 children. Before I move off of the wagon, I do want to direct your attention to a couple of extraordinarily cute promotional items based around it. First is this toy van from 2012 made by Tomy, which if it wasn't $100, I would have already gotten my hands on it. There was also a card printed in 2014 featuring Pikachu and Victini, two of the program's mascots, along with Chespin, who was a recent addition to the Pokémon universe, with the release of Pokémon X and Y being the year before. Around the same time that the wagon departed, Pokémon With You began to do showings of Pokémon movies in the disaster-stricken areas. Both of these projects continued for a long time, as I insinuated earlier, but there wasn't another new, notable project for Pokémon With You until December of 2012, when they began what might be their biggest undertaking in terms of scale. Japan's Eastern Railway Company began the operation of its Pokémon With You train, a train to connect the cities of Ichinosaka and Konosuba. The train was not only made to help improve infrastructure in the Tohoku region, but also make travel fun and attract tourists. This wasn't just a limited-time special event either, as the train not only continues to run today, but got an entire revamp in 2017. There aren't as many pictures of the original train, but once it got its purely Pikachu-based design in 2017, news outlets were all over it. I still love the new design, and I understand having only Pikachu is a lot more timeless than a bunch of Gen 5 Pokemon, but I do believe it does remove it a little bit from its roots in the Pokémon With You organization. After the operation of the train began in December of 2012, things slowed down significantly. It was almost 2 years after disaster relief began, and while helping children in need isn't a job that goes away, Pokémon With You leaned on its pre-existing projects to passively help the Tohoku region. That is until November of 2015, when they officially extended their scope to disaster-ridden regions across the entirety of Japan. As horrible of a reality as it is, the 2011 earthquake, while unmatched in its impact, is not the only disaster Japan had faced before, and it would not be the last one. They didn't add any particularly different events this time, simply continuing to do more of the same in other places. Except for the train, they didn't build any more trains. Pokémon With You continued to extend its reach even further in 2018 with its Pokémon Scholarship. This reach is meant literally too, as this scholarship was not in Japan, and instead was for students who went to the Royal College of Art in England. This isn't the only scholarship provided by the Pokémon Company, as you are also rewarded with scholarship money for winning in certain Play Pokémon events, but it is the first to focus on one's talent and what they are going to college for, instead of their ability to play the games. It would then be another 3 years before any new programs were introduced, this time being the Children's Cafeteria Initiative. A children's cafeteria is not part of a school like many in America would assume, but instead a place that provides free or low-cost meals for impoverished children. In many cases, these locations also share a place for children to talk about their feelings and often get extra education. Since May of 2021, the Pokemon's Children's Cafeteria Cheer Time has been visiting these locations all across the country to provide food, company, and Pokemon merchandise to the attending children. This is evidently Pokemon With You's main operation, but that doesn't mean there haven't been a few smaller, miscellaneous projects they've done, that don't all have an entire section's worth to discuss, but are no less meaningful. Going on at the time of writing this video, they have begun a Pikachu garbage pickup activity. They have been teaching IT classes around the country, including Pokemon programming, and what is probably the perfect topic to finish this discussion on, Pokemon Defense. Pokemon Defense is a series of classes taught in kindergartens and nurseries to inform kids on natural disaster safety. To do this, they show videos and images featuring Pokemon characters, which makes what could be scary information a lot more digestible. This project began in late 2022 and is still going on today. Even 11 years after the infamous Eastern Japanese earthquakes, Pokemon With You wants to make sure no disaster can ever affect children the same way again, and hopefully, this video has helped pass that message on to you, the viewer. Mirroring the words of Pokemon Company President Tsunekaze Ishihara, if we all work together, we can bring smiles to children and help make the world a happier place for everyone.